Well, the cover-up of just how serious the Ebola crisis is accelerating right now on this Thursday, 16th day of October, 2014 transmission. I'm your host, Alex Jones. They are telling 911 dispatchers, Fox Television out of D.C. is reporting, not to say Ebola over the radio or when they're basically talking about a call that they're on. We have Obama saying there's nothing to fear, that it's a low probability that an epidemic will start in the U.S., even as we learn that the second nurse to contract Ebola traveled all over the place on aircraft and that the plane was not even cleaned, that is wiped down. They picked up the trash on the floor, but not a deep clean, for 5 more flights after she was on it. 5 more flights. Meanwhile, Central and South American countries have announced today that they are going to cease flights from West Africa into their countries, months after Europe did this and the Middle East did it. And still, the U.S. is not just allowing the flights in, but issuing visas to whoever wants them to come. Rubber stamping them. So we have more countries issuing travel bans on Ebola-stricken nations like Colombia and different Caribbean islands like St. Luke. Is that how you pronounce that? St. Lucia. But not the United States. We are the Ebola vomit bag. The Ebola toilet. You know, memes are very, very powerful. And that's why we've launched this contest that's only running for another week. To go to Infowars.com/contest, print off the flyers, hang them up, shoot video of it, send us the video, we'll post it, and then a week later on Halloween, I will announce the winner. Hashtag Ebola contest. And they say it's racist to tie Obama to Ebola. Well, no, we're going to tie collectivism to the disease and the fact the government's helping push it. That's the whole point of this contest, ladies and gentlemen. So get out there and don't wait. Shoot the videos now, and everybody wins by getting the word out. There's obviously a global stock market plunge going on. The U.S. stock market, the Dow Jones Industrial Average, we'll show TV viewers a document cam shot of this, has lost its last 6 months' gains just since October began. Now, the Plunge Protection Team, or the President's Committee on Open Markets, set up after the 87 crash, could have pumped this up anytime they wanted to. And clearly what they're doing is testing the population to see what they'll do if they allow it to continue to drop. But something that Max Kaiser and many others predicted would happen this year is now happening, is now taking place. And that is a run on treasuries. Bulls run for the exit. Rising concerns about the global economy triggered a flash crash in U.S. Treasury yields yesterday as losses spread across stock markets and a new wave of investors appeared to give up on their bullish bets. Yeah, I was downtown yesterday and saw a lot of depressed yuppies looking at their smartphones and talking to each other and saying, gee, I wish I knew how to run these put options better, or gee, I wish I knew how to naked short better, and just all shaking their heads. And I looked at 2 different groups of businessmen and I said, don't you understand it's all rigged? You need to work for Goldman Sachs. Don't ever go the direction, anytime that it's going to new highs, you know they're going to plunge it, to reel in all the little fish, to bring in the nets. But you like being preyed upon. You can't help it. Well, I choose not to live on my knees as a slave to the globalists, and I defiantly resist their attack on free will and liberty worldwide. Well, here we are on this live Thursday worldwide transmission, the 16th day. We have just absolutely over-the-top important news on the Ebola front, on the economic front, on the Second Amendment front, on the police state front. with Houston literally trying to intimidate churches into not giving sermons that criticize transsexual behavior or homosexuality. And a lot of libertarian groups have been coming out, and even though they are open to other lifestyles because they're libertarians, they are defending these preachers, because if you're going to have your right to live the way you want, somebody else has to have their right to live and speak as they see fit. Flaming authoritarianism, pun intended, out of the Houston mayor and the rest of them. Suing churches. This is what Europe and Canada are doing. This is the model. Everything you see with political correctness out of Europe and Canada is coming here. They arrest preachers that criticize homosexuality. And to control language, in England, they arrested Robin Page, who wasn't even a critic of the gay lobby, a decade ago, when he gave a speech saying rural communities deserve the same rights as Muslims and homosexuals. And they said that the scientific term homosexual, like heterosexual, was hurtful and homophobic, and so he was arrested as an example to everyone. That's England. That's like if I say Caucasians have light skin and they came and arrested me. Caucasian is a scientific word. There is a war against science, ladies and gentlemen. There is a war against free speech. I don't like the Ku Klux Klan. I've protested them more than a dozen times. The videos are on YouTube. And I would go to the protest and point out that they were really feds, and a lot of times it would turn out they were feds, and they would really single me out to death threaten me and attack me, and the police generally would do nothing in Waco and other areas. But I would never call to have their speech taken. And by the way, when I'd go protest the Klan or other Mecha La Raza Hispanic Klan groups, they would always say, how dare you try to stop my free speech? No. Free speech means you can say what you want, I can say what I want right back. You understand how that works? It's a two-way street. But see, the left does what Mecha and La Raza and the Klan and the New Black Panther Party and others will do. When you try to go counter-demonstrate against them, they'll get in your face saying, stop trying to stop my speech, while they're trying to stop yours. That's what the left does. They say, you can't have your speech and say you're against abortion. We're going to have the IRS come after you. You can't say you think homosexuality is a sin because it's your interpretation of the Bible. I'm going to try to have you arrested. Whoa, that is over-the-top totalitarianism. And as soon as it got a lot of coverage in the news the last few days, Bully Pulpit, Houston subpoenas pastors and sermons, then backs off amidst outcry. I mean, this mayor is another crazy Anise Parker leftist control freak. I mean, if you're watching on TV, you can see her. What a dangerous person. In America, we're going to subpoena and sue with taxpayer money preachers to intimidate them not to read out of the Bible. And notice with political correctness, they only target Christians. All these other mosques and even some of the Eastern religions are against homosexuality. Nobody's telling them to shut up. It's always Christianity that's supposed to shut up. And, there's other examples of killing free speech. I'm going to talk about this at the bottom of the hour. I went and saw Kill the Messenger last night, and I expected it to be a whitewash. I expected it to, imply that he killed himself. And it was absolute truth, because I remember Gary Webb being on the show more than 10 times. I had all these incredible conversations with Gary Webb off air. He wanted me to build a website for him. He sent me all these documents that the CIA had broken in his house a bunch to try to get. I was too busy making films and making babies with my wife. I remember he called back the last time I talked to him, a few months before he committed suicide. And he said, hey, man, Alex, I thought you had the courage to put this up and do something. And I said, yeah, there's thousands of pages of this stuff. And a lot of this is court records and stuff. And I go, I guess I'll put it out. But he goes, well, I thought you got balls. I mean, these are epic conversations I had with Gary Webb, now a hit movie out about him. And it was so surreal to be sitting there in the movie theater and knowing his whole story, and it was so accurate. And then they basically imply that the CIA kills him at the end, and they show the CIA threaten his kids and break in his house and break in his car and steal his motorcycle. And it was just, I know the story so well. I know Freeway Ricky Ross. I was the only person to ever interview him in prison. Kevin Booth got that interview from prison. I mean, I had the guy on death row on from Oklahoma, from Terre Haute, who was there and saw McVeigh admit what was later partially declassified, that he was Black Ops, Army, Super Special Forces set up. I'm not even here bragging, oh my gosh, this show's important. I felt incredibly guilty that I don't even know where that disc is, that CD-ROM that I opened up, and it was just, I don't even know how to process all this stuff. I need to tear apart our storage buildings and find that. And then I don't even want to talk about how I had that disc, because they were like killing people over this stuff. And then I went and searched last night when I got home. I went to bed, then I woke up in the middle of the night and went and searched for like an hour at 3 a.m., 4 a.m. And I couldn't even find one interview I did with Gary Webb. It's kind of like I did a couple interviews, 2 interviews with Charlton Heston. I can only find one. There were probably 15 interviews with Gary Webb, 2-hour interviews, some of them. And this was back when they had demonized him in the New York Times and the Washington Post, and when they had just torn him apart. And of course, it all turned out everything he said was true. It was very accurate. He was just pointing out what was already known and even been in congressional hearings years before on Southeast Asian drug dealing. Heroin, not cocaine, not white girl, as they call it. And I was just thinking about how bizarre it is that I talked to him a couple months before he died, and I was remembering back my last conversation with him is he got mad at me and slammed the phone down. And he was just somebody looking for help because he resigned from the San Jose Mercury News. He was trying to get his stories out on the internet. They were breaking in his house a bunch, so he moved again. He'd pull up and guys would slide down from the second story, down the drainage pipe. Then he moved into a 1-story house. And then they'd have known CIA people write articles about me right after he died, saying Jones claims that men slid down the drainage pipe, but Webb lived in a 1-story. Well, yeah, he just moved into it. It was just all these games. And then watching how they demonized him and how they tried to kill his name before they physically killed him, and experiencing a lot of this myself, it was a surreal. I've never gone and seen a movie where, from what I know, it was so incredibly accurate and so incredibly sad, and then I resonated with it because they always make it about the individual. If they can't disprove your facts, they just demonize and destroy the individual themselves. And I got a sick feeling in my stomach as I realized that the clock's just ticking until they come and shoot me in the head twice, or plant drugs on me, or shoot me at a checkpoint or something. And it made me sad to watch all the cowards, his editors and his bosses at the San Jose Mercury News, that when it was all the big story, they were telling him what a rock star he was. But then as soon as the system turned against him, how the editor of the LA Times was former CIA, and they set about to destroy him. And the CIA declassified 3 weeks ago, on the eve of this film coming out, that they indeed set out to destroy Gary Webb. I said I'd cover it at the bottom of the hour. I'm already doing it. Who wrote the Dark Alliance story about CIA drug trafficking. Here's the headline: Managing a Nightmare, how the CIA watched over the destruction of Gary Webb. It's just so pathetic. And then why would the CIA admit they did this right when the movie came out? Because they want everybody to know. They want to just literally urinate on the corpse of our republic and scare the media and the press right as the CIA rolls out domestically. Oh, we have massive global stock market and bond market news, over-the-top important Ebola news. Max Kaiser's coming on the first 30 minutes of the third hour to break down the bond market implosion that he predicted would happen by the middle of this year. So I guess he's a little bit late on that, but still accurate. We're going to get Harry Dent on next week, who's been predicting it'll be depressionary, not inflationary. And it does appear that the collapse is depressionary overall, with a bizarre icing of inflationary on top of it. That's not supposed to be able to happen in real economics, but things are so rigged. Bulls run for the exit on U.S. Treasuries. Italy and France make plea for growth as EU-Asia leaders meet. Gold is up today on global slowdown concerns. Crude oil is plunging below $80 a barrel. But refineries have been restricted as a bottleneck, so don't expect prices to fall too much. This is the type of over-the-top information. I intended to not even talk about Kill the Messenger today, but it was so profound last night watching this movie and so personal and so surreal, because I was remembering, man, I really knew this guy well. He wanted to work with me. He had his new book coming out that was going to be basically self-published, exposing the full scope of CIA drug dealing, and they killed him. And he told me he was being threatened. And he told Ricky Ross, who's on next Tuesday, the big CIA crack dealer, biggest in West Coast history, that guys were breaking in and they were going to kill him right before they killed him. It's just so unbelievably bizarre that it even came out in Congress in the late 90s with a solicitor inspector general that they were shipping most of the cocaine in, but then they knew the public was so dumbed down, they would go on national television and say, Gary Webb has been discredited. The drug kingpin in the Central American prison says that he never met with him. And then to imagine the LA Times editor, who was CIA on record, and the movie even points that out, set out to destroy this journalist. I just hope everybody involved in this knows that when they set him down and said, we're going to kill your family if you don't write this suicide note, and then shot him twice in the head, that all of you are accomplices to that. And they say one man dies, it's a tragedy, 10,000 die, it's a statistic, as Joseph Stalin said. It's true. But when you destroy a real journalist and someone who has integrity and courage and who swims against the tide, you then kill the courage of thousands of other journalists and other individuals and whistleblowers, and just allow incredible evil to grow. And I wouldn't call the film a whitewash. They've got some of the courtroom scenes where they actually threaten to kill Gary Webb out in the hallway repeatedly. And it has a scene where the feds break in his house, break in his car, but this happened on a routine basis. And then the CIA wanted to meet with him, so he goes to their offices and they say, we just want you to know your children are safe. I remember Gary Webb telling that story here on air. And the fact that he blew up at him and said, I'm going to publish that story no matter what you do, that's real courage. People say, oh, well, I'd do that. Really? I haven't found a lot of people that when they say, we're going to kill your kids, and I've had them actually tell me, we're going to kill your kids if you don't stop, and I haven't stopped. And you know why? Because my kids don't have a future if we don't stop this. The allegory, and your children don't either, is that we're in a ship that's capsized, and if we don't swim the 50 yards through the submerged area, even though it's scary and dark, and try to get out, we're all going to drown because it's slowly sinking. But a lot of true stories where this has happened. Let's say we had oxygen tanks in there. I'm not going to put oxygen tanks on and just sit there and say, well, I get to live an hour longer than everybody else. If I had oxygen tanks, I'd try to swim out even faster than I would if I didn't have oxygen tanks. But see, people just say, well, the tyranny's rising. I'm going to put an oxygen tank in my mouth. I'm going to put a regulator in my mouth, a mouthpiece in, and I'm just going to try to be, the last person standing when this all happens. I'm going to go along and try to survive. No, you'll just be dead in the capsized, tyrannical ship of state as well. This country is falling apart. It is just totally disintegrating. Corruption is everywhere. Under the Obama tax laws, they've gotten rid of all the major write-offs, all the major business incentives. Businesses are shutting down everywhere. It's in the news today that it's the highest federal receipts they've ever had. They are destroying the country on purpose. They are wrecking it and looting it. And I'm done talking about Gary Webb. I'm going to shoot a special report for the Nightly News tonight or tomorrow because I really want to do this justice and write some notes and really talk about it. And I want to get my crew to send us the links, listeners. Go out and search the web. Old podcasts, you name us. Send me the Gary Webb interviews I did. The globalist social engineers are not just targeting us with propaganda. They are manipulating our genetics. We are being targeted at every level by estrogen mimickers that lower our testosterone and other hormones and natural compounds that the body needs. After consulting top doctors, nutritionists, pharmacists, and others, we have developed what I believe is the ultimate non-GMO organic super male vitality formula sourced from powerful organic herbs and then concentrated for maximum potency. Super Male Vitality was developed to activate your body's own natural processes instead of using synthetic chemicals. Super Male Vitality by InfoWars Life is so powerful that I only take half the recommended dose. For a limited time, we are offering 15% off Super Male Vitality at InfoWarsLife.com to introduce you to this powerful supplement. Visit InfoWarsLife.com today to secure your Super Male Vitality. InfoWarsLife.com.